The second pick will be made by the Charlotte Hornets. And that means that the #1 pick in the 2023 NBA draft goes to the San Antonio Spurs.
I made a video a few weeks back talking about the ideal landing spot for Victor Wembanyama, or where we as fans would want to see him go most. And of course, aside from him being on our own teams for whichever we're a fan of, that it would be the San Antonio Spurs. I know this is me throwing shade at the Charlotte Hornets, but I think we all, except for Hornets fans, breathed a big sigh of relief when we saw the Hornets logo with the second pick and not the Spurs, because the last destination you would want to see a once-in-a-generation level prospect go to the NBA is Charlotte, where development and team success haven't been the best, to put it nicely. So to see what most are calling the greatest prospect since LeBron James, a once-in-a-generation talent that could be the future face of the league, to have him go to the Spurs, an organization that is top-notch when it comes to their player development, culture, and winning history, with arguably the greatest coach of all time in Greg Popovich, is going to be the perfect fit for Victor Wembanyama, and the hype surrounding him coming into the NBA to get the most out of his talent, and it's what we'll be talking about in this video. If you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, the San Antonio Spurs, after having made a blockbuster trade last offseason by trading away their only all-star DeJounte Murray in his prime to the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for 3 first-round picks, 2 of which are unprotected. And when Murray was in trade rumors at that time, most people couldn't fathom why they would look to move on from an up-and-coming player who was getting better with every passing season, had just been selected to his first All-Star game, was great on both ends of the floor, and was young and in his prime. That's a player most teams would likely build around, but no. The Spurs had different plans when they realized that they could get in return for DeJounte Murray a big haul and have a legit shot at the Wemby sweepstakes while obtaining a ton of draft capital in return. They pulled the trigger, sending Murray off to Atlanta. And rather than remaining in the middle of the road, purgatory in basketball, making the play-in but failing to get to the playoffs, they chose a direction rebuilding to get back to being a title contender, as we have seen from this team for so many seasons. Now, I've always said before, tanking is a gamble. In a draft lottery system where you're never guaranteed a top pick no matter how bad you finish in the standings, that is a risk. And when you're instilling that losing mentality and culture among your players, it's never great. But for the Spurs, it worked. And in fact, this is the second time it's worked, where they were one of the top teams in the NBA back in the 90s, but then were riddled with injuries in the 96-97 season, finished with one of the worst records in the league, and then had a chance to draft a generational talent in Tim Duncan, who they got, and would later on become their greatest franchise player in history, winning 5 titles and is considered by most to be a top 10 all-time great in NBA history. And this season, after trading away Murray, focusing on a year of development for their younger players, they finished tied for the second worst record in the league and ended up with the #1 pick in the draft, which most expect they will be using to take Victor Wembanyama. So they're about to get a prospect of a lifetime. They also have 3 first-round picks coming their way from the Atlanta Hawks. It also pains me to say, but they also have a first-round pick in 2025, top 10 protected, coming from the Bulls in the DeMar DeRozan sign and trade. Not to mention the young talent they have on their team with Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sochan. They're one of the few teams with a ton of cap space, with little money committed on their books outside of Keldon Johnson. The Spurs have positioned themselves incredibly well for the future, and while most people call the Spurs a boring team, be that as it may, I just enjoy watching good quality basketball, which the Spurs always bring, and it's weird seeing them be one of the bottom teams in the league. And while I think it's obviously going to take some time to become a title contender again, but dare I say it, they potentially have positioned themselves well for their next dynasty with all of their draft picks they have coming their way with their franchise player in Wembanyama. It'll actually be interesting to see how this will impact the Spurs over and under in wins for next season, and even with the title odds they will receive, even though not that they're going to be title contenders for the first season under Wemby, but you're likely going to see a drastic increase compared to the title odds that they had for the Spurs last season. Which brings me to the sponsor of this video, DraftKings. It's the most exciting time of year for NBA fans. Whether your team is in or out, there is nothing sweeter than watching the best teams in the league compete for a shot at the title, giving it their all on the court. These guys play 82 games to get to the playoffs, alright? And with the playoffs, our partners at DraftKings are bringing the high-stakes action to all newcomers customers, DraftKings Sportsbook is offering all new customers $150 in bonus bets instantly. Yep, that's right. New customers, you bet just $5 on any wager and you will receive $150 in bonus bets instantly to give you even more opportunities to get in on the action. Wondering what you could use for the $150 in bonus bets that you just earned? Well, try DraftKings same game parlays, where you can combine multiple bets for the same game into one big bet for a shot at an even bigger payout. If mobile sports betting is not available in your state, don't worry, you can still get in on the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy, where they offer cash prize contests for nearly every sport. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code AND1, bet $5 on any wager and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code AND1 only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, we talked about the Spurs and how they've positioned themselves for the future and having the right draft capital and assets to build around Wemby, but how good is Victor Wembanyama going to be for a team like the Spurs? Or just how good is Wemby in general? Because we hear a lot about how he's this incredible prospect, everyone is going to be tanking for him, franchise-altering player, but is he all that? Well, while yes, there are some concerns around his build, frame, and whether his height and slenderness will make him susceptible to injuries in the NBA and whether he's still going to be able to be as dominant going up against some of the best big men in the league. And while yes, those are valid concerns, but Wembanyama is all of that and more. It's not every day you see a 7'4" teenager have the ball handling skills of a guard, the footwork and post-up ability of a center, the rim protection and defense to make it impossible to score on him, while also still having the shooting and scoring prowess as a versatile offensive player. In short, Wemby is the whole package: offense, defense, court vision, IQ. Scouts and analysts have likened him to being a 7'4" Kevin Durant with Jokic-like passing, the outside shooting of a Kristaps Porzingis, and the shot blocking ability of a young Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And the kid is only 19 years old with room to develop, perfect his skills, and get better. Wemby has been playing professional basketball since he was 15 years old, playing and showing out well against grown professionals in France. People talk about injuries as a concern for Wembanyama, yet he's remained durable in his young professional career overseas. They talk about his slender frame and whether he can stack up toe-to-toe against guys like Joel Embiid, Giannis, or Jokic. Well, let's also remember just how skinny Embiid was when he was a teenager. Not saying Wemby is going to be suddenly ballooning up into the size of Embiid, but he has the time to fill out, build the muscle and strength as he grows and enters his prime. And with an organization like the Spurs that will prioritize his development, the proper discipline to stay focused on bettering himself without getting distracted from the limelight and constant attention and critique that will be around him. A team that has a championship pedigree and winning history to eventually lead to a potential future all-time great. Getting ahead of myself, I know, and we've seen some prospects who were hyped coming into the league not become the superstars that we thought they would be. Guys like Andrew Wiggins, Ben Simmons, even Zion Williamson more recently. Players who were viewed as being generational prospects, but yet to have shown anything close to being that level of superstardom. Side note, how unlucky for the Pistons, finishing with the worst record in the league, winning 17 games all season. The worst pick they could have gotten was the 5th pick in the draft, and they landed at number 5, with 4 teams jumping them. So no, tanking doesn't always work. Granted, they did land the number 1 pick in 2021, which got them Cade, who is going to be a fine player. But again, it's always a gamble. I wouldn't have wanted to see Wembanyama in Detroit anyway. I don't feel like that fit would have worked, even though they have a nice, young, talented core for their future. And I'm especially happy to not see him on the Rockets, which it appeared like Wemby felt the same as well, as he looked pretty happy when he saw the Rockets get the 4th pick. Probably didn't realize the camera was on him when the pick was actually read. But aside from me wanting to see Wembanyama land with the Bulls and their 1.8 outside chance of getting number 1 pick, the next team I would have wanted to see him on was the Spurs. I think it's the perfect fit. I'll also have some other reactions to the draft lottery as a whole and whether some teams are going to be looking to trade their picks, most notably the Blazers looking to ship the 3rd pick for a star to put alongside Damian Lillard, and even potentially the Mavericks looking to trade their number 10 pick to bolster their roster after a disappointing season and missing the play-in, even after trading for Kyrie Irving. So more on that in the coming days. In the meantime, as always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.